How many of you guys have seen the movie Brigsby Bear? How many of you know the meaning of rhetorical? Anyway, you guys have probably not seen the movie Brigsby Bear because it's not a movie that's mainstream and it's kind of indie. I had to go out and seek it myself. It wasn't playing at a lot of theaters, but I'm glad I went out and looked it up. And now I'm gonna give you what the movie's about, so spoilers ahead, because I don't think there's gonna be a way for you guys to see this movie unless you buy it or you rent it digitally somehow. So anyway, one of the sayings in Brigsby Bear is, may our minds be stronger. I think that's a pretty good mantra. And watching this film, I thought of a lot of other things biblically, like the world isn't real. What we know here isn't our permanent home. And we all aspire, I hope, to go to our heavenly home, our real home. And then the main character is James, and he is very much a childlike character. And I think of Matthew 19:14, which is, suffer the little children unto me. And then also I think of the story of Zacchaeus, how Jesus befriended somebody who was undesirable, somebody not, popular in his occupation, and he was able to find a common bond with that person. And then this week we were going through, or was it a couple weeks ago, Jeremy brought up 2 Peter 1, verses 5 through 7. I'll just read that for you. That came to my mind while we were discussing. For this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith goodness, and to goodness knowledge, and to knowledge self-control, and to self-control perseverance, and to perseverance godliness, and to godliness mutual affection, and to mutual affection love. So to me that kind of goes back to may our minds be stronger. We're striving for these fruits of the Spirit to be stronger, not only within ourselves, but within our community. And what also sticks out to me about Brigsby Bear, the movie, is that it's about acceptance. It's about welcoming an individual who's not normally, not normal, you'll find out, and how the community and the family around him embraces him and ultimately brings him into the family. And then that made me think of my family and how there were certain things that I would do that would kind of annoy my mom as a kid. And I don't know how many of you, when you're learning sounds of animals, you try to imitate the animal. Like you behave like a dog, you behave like a duck, you quack like a duck. I started to impersonate a flamingo. And my mom got tired of that, and she told me, you need to stop doing that. And I said, I'm going to have to put my foot down. Anyway, so what's the difference between a piano, glue, and a tuna? You can tune a piano, but you can't piano a tuna. I see where some of you might not get that joke because of the glue, but let's not get stuck on that. So how can these Bible verses elicit the same response out of a movie? Well, I'm here to show you how. So let's not get stuck on the medium, but let's instead focus on the message. People come into our lives every day, whether we want them to or not. That's just a part of living life on earth. And in those interactions, what will they learn about God from us? I think Brigsby Bear kind of sums it up in a weirdly poignant way for me. So let's play the first clip, which is a trailer.
Just like expected. Look at the raised hotcakes. They're active every night. The difference is we have dreams.
need to tell you.
Everything's very big. It's really very big.
The reason you're here, the reason I'm here, is all just to help you.
Everyone says they're trying to help me, but nobody can find anything episode of Rick.
There wasn't a new episode this week. This is about moving on with the rest of your life.
Try to imagine a hero.
Just be normal,
I'm James. I really like your clothes.
He's not on the bad side. He's on the good side.
You, Ricky Bear, our keeper of the light.
You really want to do this?
Yeah, man, I mean, there's not much stuff like this out there. You guys done?
So I don't know about you guys, but the trailer tells you nothing of the movie. And I think that's why I enjoyed, or I wanted to seek this thing out, because I'm like, what are these, what's going on here? Let's dig a little deeper. Let's see what's here. And sure enough, I was able to find something, and I'll be your guide through this this time we have together, and let's break the thing down. Okay, so you saw James. He lives in an underground home. That's how the movie opens, with his parents, Ted and April Mitchum. They're forced to stay underground because it's led to believe that there's a post-apocalyptic world that we're living in, and you need gas masks to go outside in the environment. They stay in like a shelter, a bomb shelter. There's a dome. There's a whole bunch of rules, like put the trash here for specific reasons, and only do this at night and not this during the day. And so how James passes the time is that he watches this children's educational show that you saw little clips of called Brigsby Bear. It's kind of like your Barney, your Sesame Street, your Teletubbies. And it gives him life lessons, like, be kind to your parents and, take out the trash when you're asked. Little things like that give him his moral compass in this seemingly isolated world. So how many of us know only of one world, and then things change? Like, let's say, I don't know, this happens in other pieces of literature, like The Giver. I don't know if anybody's read The Giver, but the main character in that, I think his name is Caleb, can only see in black and white, and then when he's able to see color for the first time, he doesn't know what that is. So his mind and his world is opened up to a larger world. So right now, James is stuck in where he is. And then one night, while he goes outside without the permission of his parents, he sneaks outside like any, rebellious teenager. But at this point, he's more or less 20. He sneaks outside, and he sees these lights in the distance coming. And that's the police. They come in to liberate him from what turns out to be his captors. His parents, Ted and April, have actually kidnapped him from birth. And then now they take James away from this complex that he's known for all his life, and they take him into the real world, into the police station. And that's where we meet Greg Kinnear, who you saw in the trailer. He plays the detective that first gets to talk to James. He also informs James that Brigsby Bear is not real, because that's all that James is fascinated with and he's focused on. In his room, I don't know if you saw a little bit of the clip there, but he's got a whole bunch of memorabilia. He's got all the VHS tapes. I don't know how many of you guys remember VHS tapes, but he's got all of those on his wall. He's got a bunch of toys. He's got shirts. He's got all this stuff of a franchise, as you would think like when kids grow up with like their favorite toy or their cartoon. But he's 20. He doesn't know any better. And then he learns that Brigsby Bear was entirely made up from his so-called parents. And now Detective Vogel is going to reunite James with his real parents, Greg and Louise Pope. And he also finds out that he has a teenage sister, Aubrey. So let's play the second clip of that interaction and transition.
listen, I'm your friend in all this, you know? The reason you're here, the reason I'm here is all just to try and help you. Does that make any sense?
No.
James, do you know why we brought you here?
Is it because one time I threw a rocket at Grand Fox? I mean, the soldiers just showed up, and then my mom and dad said, you have to be strong.
Your mom and dad, that's, is it Ted and April? Yeah, can you tell me about that?
I guess they're older. Kind of boring.
Keep you locked up? Or you're restrained?
I mean, the doors were locked. And the airlock was off limits. That's regulations and stuff.
James, what's that on your shirt?
It's a bridge view.
Of course. Well, I've got a few things to go over here, just in terms of life, existence in general. First, we have this. Keep a special stash in the main fridge for friends. What do you know?
So what is this place?
This is a police station. Many years ago, you were adopted by Ted and your mention. They're not your parents. You're going to meet them a little bit later on today.
It's a different reality than I thought. And everything's very big. It's really very big.
How many of you guys can remember the first time that you had soda? I mean, I think that's great how they captured that moment in there. I remember the first time my nephew had soda. I wish I had a video. I wish I had a camera phone at the time. That was so long ago. But now you can see all the other people posting on social media, giving kids things for the first time. Like I remember there was one called, not called, but they gave, I think his daughter wasabi for the first time. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I wouldn't do that, but similar thing. So James has the end of his world as he knows it come to an end. And his life is basically in ruins. Like what he knew before is not what is going to happen for the rest of his life and going forward. I remember the first time I went to school. I don't know how many of you guys remember that. But I went straight into kindergarten. And I kept thinking about what my parents had told me, like go to school, get good grades, so that you can be successful, get a good job. When I was in kindergarten, I was like, this is a breeze. We get naps, we get snacks, I get to paint, I get to go on the swing set. And then when I got to first grade, I got homework. Like, there was no homework in kindergarten for me back then. I was totally unprepared for that, how deceiving kindergarten was. But that scene where the parents, his real biological parents, Greg and Louise Pope, they're celebrating that they're finding their lost son. And it reminds me of either the prodigal son in the Bible, or you can think of the lost sheep, where the shepherd goes out to find that one lost sheep for the sake of the 99. I think the movie is great at juxtaposing comedy with absurdity, and then just these heartfelt moments of general relatability for me. It's just great. And so while James is into the real world as we know it as the real world, he can't stop thinking about this TV show that he grew up with, the Brigsby Bear. And he wants to know when's the next episode? How can somebody get me the next episode? I don't think he realizes that the show was fabricated by his kidnappers. So let's play a clip of him realizing this.
Your parents and I thought it might help if we got together every once in a while to just talk.
Okay, well, why not?
Because that's what I do. I help people.
Everyone says they're trying to help me, but nobody can find me to episode of Ricky.
Well, first of all, there wasn't a new episode this week.
That's a must.
James, the way that the police found you was someone spotted Ted going into a warehouse about 40 miles outside of where he was holding captive. And inside that warehouse, they found a television stage, a cabin, props and puppets. Do you see where I'm going with this?
My old dad actually has to do that.
James, Ted Mitchell, your captor, he was the one leading the show. James?
Yes! My dad, or my old dad, he knew Ricky.
You're missing one, okay?
He was the one deciding what Ricky would do next. Did they figure out who's going to take over now?
No one's taking over doing it. You're the only person who's ever seen the show.
Friends, I'm the Bruce Bear and computer.
Well, the computer at your home was run on a closed network, so the content that we consume was created by Ted people.
Bruce is what one? Bruce what two? Bruce what three?
I'm sorry, James. No.
So there, it goes on to further deconstruct and destroy his old life, where his so-called internet friends were fabricated by his captors. And he's the only one that watches the show, where he thought that there was a community of people on internet forums discussing Brigsby Bear and the nuances and things about the show. What's also good about this scene here is that James doesn't want to let go of what's familiar, and neither do his parents in that scene. They want a normal son. They want a son that is going to play sports, learn to drive a car, do all kinds of normal things and get a job. So where do the two opposing views kind of reconcile with each other? I think, when people want to keep the status quo, that's something to challenge. It's like, why should we? Things have always been done this way. Why do we need to keep doing it this way? So when anything like that comes into your life, you have distress that comes in mentally and kind of shocks the system, and then you have to figure out how to get beyond that and how to tackle it. Anytime there's change at work, I know that there are certain people that will immediately panic. I'm not one of those people, thank goodness, but I just know that people in general don't like to deal with change. This reminds me of Romans 7:15. For what I want to do, I do not do, but what I hate, I do. So from that viewpoint, Greg and Louise Pope are seeing that their son, James wants to keep doing this thing that I would imagine them hating, because it's the thing that kept their son in line with the captors and kind of sedated. It was more or less a drug to keep him like docile and kind of more, happy with being a captive without knowing that he's a captive. So, that scene where they're reacting is powerful, even though it's sandwiched in a weird microcosm of quirkiness and absurdity. But in all of this, James doesn't play the victim. He keeps searching for what he wants and what he believes is good for him. Later on, he'll go with his teenage sister to a party, and he gets introduced to a world. He gets pretty much introduced to the world with a crash course. That's that scene where you saw he's just awkwardly interacting with people at the party, like, I like your shirt, from like 10 feet away, as opposed to having a conversation up close. So he's just a fish out of water. And I mean, sometimes in a big city like LA, you have people dealing with depression and loneliness when we're surrounded by people. So it's a real problem. But here it's put under like a weird spotlight in the guise of a movie and played for comedy. So James continues to seek out this thing that he knew from his childhood, which is the Brigsby Bear Show. And he knows that all the props and things that were used are confiscated at the police station. So he goes to meet Detective Vogel again, and he tries to convince him and tries to help him out. And we'll play a clip with Detective Vogel at lunch.
Hey, James. Still hanging around, huh? I feel like I wasn't clear earlier about what I'm trying to do. Try to imagine a hero. And he's not on the bad side. He's on the good side. But he has to go against a guy on the bad side. So that's why he decides he's going to go on an adventure. Plus, it's not on TV, it's on a screen so big, you're going to feel like you're in another world.
No, I know what a movie is, and I think it's really great to be creative. I actually performed in a lot of plays when I was in high school. Prospero, The Tempest. I pray thee, mark me, that a brother could be so perfidious. He who next thyself in all the world loves him. I don't know the rest of it, but
That was so good. I didn't have to prepare anything, so it's just... No, that was amazing. Did you do theaters?
No, I'm just saying, I know what you're trying to do, and I think it's great, James.
Why?
Why?
Why are you doing it?
Act. Yeah. Things change. You get older. Move on. I do this now.
It's very sad that you get to do what was important to you. I just have to go.
So James is trying to make and continue on the Brigsby story by making the movie himself, because the production has stopped because the people that were making the production are in jail. So he goes to Detective Vogel, and he finds out by talking to him that he has acting experience and that he cast him in the movie. And then at the party that Aubrey, his teenage sister, brought him to, he meets a guy called Spencer. And Spencer is also a young budding filmmaker, and James recruits Spencer to help him make this movie. And so now this guy that's the weird marginalized person is now gathering a team together. First of all, Brigsby Bear should be something to be laughed at and passed over, but then through the course of the movie, it generates a buzz, and people get to know it, and they think it's retro, it's cool, it's everything that's old is new again. And I think that that's something great, that it's now bringing people together, where before Brigsby Bear was something to keep James separate from his parents, his real biological parents. And it reminds me of what Detective Vogel is quoting from Shakespeare. And I'm reminded of the quote, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players." And that's from As You Like It by Shakespeare. And so now he has all his players ready, and they go and they film some stuff. And while he's doing this, he's bonding with his newfound friends and with his newly found sister. We'll play a clip from when they're in the woods. So you can see there that his newly found sister is now embracing the fact that he's this weird, quirky guy, where before, when she took him to the party, she was basically saying, act normal, don't act weird. And now she's helping him in his weirdness to create this movie. So if you know anything about movie, the third act is where the main character is at his darkest moment. So right now, everything is going well. He's making friends, he's making a movie, and he uses explosives, which is illegal in the national forest. So the park rangers come and they arrest him, and he takes the blame for all of it, not wanting his friends to get in trouble. And now, since this incident happened in his, rehabilitation into real normal life, Emily, who is played by Claire Danes, the therapist, psychiatrist, sees him going, regressing sort of. So she recommends that he be put into a mental institution. So now, James has had one false start, if you will, with Ted and April, and then he's had a new start with Greg and Louise, and now he's had another setback. But, this is the third act of the movie. The end isn't always the end. Following this, he meets some people in the institution, and again, he makes friends. And you'll see that he makes a friend with Andy Samberg, who we know from Saturday Night Live. And in this darkest hour, he knows the best is yet to come. So let's play the last clip.
That's all I
this happen?
Well, this is supposed to be a surprise for when you go home. Why are you home?
They told her they're rid of everything.
Yeah, but I'll go over here. It was a heads up.
It was Dad's idea to use the garage.
Good.
Yeah, well, I'll show you some of the stuff you did together, and well, I think it was a really cool son. I thought about our list, and hey, maybe this is a great thing for the family to do together.
But they told me I couldn't even think about her because they wouldn't let me leave.
Okay, well, we think Dr. Larson's being a little hard on her.
Yeah.
And you've been doing so well with everything else. In a couple of weeks, you're going to have an independent evaluation, and hopefully that means you get to go home permanently.
And we can finish church too.
We're your family, James. We love you for who you are. We know that Grace Day is part of that.
Wait, James. How'd you get here?
I tried to get to the window.
You didn't cut me out of it with me. No. Well, then I didn't hear anything.
So throughout the quirkiness and the weirdness and all the stuff that James is doing, the family and the friends pull together and they still love him for who he is. They welcome his weirdness, his quirkiness, and Greg is saying in there, before when they were in the therapy session, he was put off by how much Brigsby Bear was a part of James's life, and then here he's the one suggesting we should use the garage. And I'm reminded of Matthew 18, 2 through 4, with the childlike wonder that Jesus is telling the disciples and the people asking around him who's going to be the greatest in heaven. And it's that childlike wonder that I think is encapsulated perfectly in James's fascination with Brigsby Bear. So with this, the band will play a song, and then I will close us out.